Step 9 of the Seder is maror. Maror is numerically equivalent to death. It symbolizes our exile and the bitterness of our pain and our suffering, the bitterness that exists in the current world. There's a halacha that says someone who eats maror quickly without actually tasting the bitterness does not fulfill his or her obligation. So it is important, it is part of the process to feel the bitterness and the exile, especially for the places that we often don't want to look at. We all have our inner Egypts, and often we suppress them and we don't want to look at our darkness. It's uncomfortable. It's easier to invite positive feelings in. But maror directs us to sit with our pain and suffering. And only when we can recognize our Egypt can we begin to transform them, which is why the Alter Rebbe says that maror should be eaten slowly. To better him or herself, a person must take time and meditate deeply on his faults until he comes to tears. And once we've gone through that process of really feeling the bitterness of our exile and the current state of the world, then can we begin to sweeten it, which is why we dip the maror in haroset, the sweetness of the haroset, because eventually we're able to take the bitterness from our past and realize that it's what propelled us into our true freedom. It's what helped us to grow. But first we have to recognize the difficulties, sit with them, and then we can sweeten them and move on into an open, fresh, sweet future. The word for maror is very similar and connected to our matriarch Miriam. And Miriam's name means the sea of bitterness. It was Miriam who really felt the harshest period of exile. She was born in the muck of it, and because she fully embraced the suffering, she also had the deepest visceral yearning for freedom. And it's because of her that she led the redemption. She led the woman, and she stayed true to her vision. She forced her parents to remarry, to have a baby boy who soon became Moshe, the leader of the Jewish people. She kept her eyes on him through the Nile, and it's because of her that the well of Miriam accompanied the Jews in the desert. Because of her visceral yearning and her ability to be deep within exile, was she able to have the water, the springs of freedom and nourishment. And Miriam's difficulty in Egypt wasn't a dullness of depression, but it was a strong, sharp pain, which was like a horseradish, which was like a jolting need to change. And because of that, she led the woman in song and in dance, the song of Miriam with tambourines, and it's in the merit of the righteous woman that we were redeemed. So thanks to Miriam, the sea of bitterness is what sprouted the ultimate redemption. And what prompted the beginning of redemption in Egypt was when the Jews let out a groan. Up until this groan, they were not aware they were enslaved. They were so in the thick of it that they didn't zoom out and realize that they were enslaved. And as soon as they let out this groan of suffering, that inner movement prompted an arousal from above. And that's what started the whole redemption. So sometimes just a simple groan, just a simple moment of being in our Egypt can really start the journey of transformation. So may we eat maror with deep presence and then dip the maror in sweetness, knowing that our bitterness leads to something good.